Appreciate it. Before we get started on the real business of the evening, I'd like to ask you to turn off your cell phones. Thank you very, very much. Okay. We are delighted to have Alberto Alvaro Rios with us once again. He's an old friend of the Southwest Writers Series, having been our honored guest several times over the years, but it's particularly satisfying this last night of National Poetry Month to welcome him here as Arizona's first poet laureate. Alberto was born in Nogales, Arizona, grew up down there on the U.S.-Mexico border. He's the author of poetry and short story collections and a memoir, and several of his books have really cool titles, such as The Smallest Muscle in the Human Body, Teodoro Luna's Two Kisses, The Lime Orchard Woman, 5 Indiscretions, Pig Cookies, The Iguana Killer. Some of these books, and possibly others with equally cool titles, are actually for sale here tonight, courtesy of Peregrine Bookstore and Susan Lang over at that table. Please make your way over there and get some at the end so Alberto can sign them for you. Alberto has been teaching writing at ASU, Arizona State University, for some time. And he's won numerous major awards for his work. Awards from the Guggenheim Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Walt Whitman, the Western Series Book Awards, 6 Pushcart Prizes in both fiction and poetry. He's in the Norton. He's on TV, hosting Books and Company every week on PBS. You can watch him on the website, interviewing Colin Powell. He's got projects, a riverfront project for which he will write 600 short poems that will be etched onto granite tiles, a hospital project, a canal project, a poem he wrote at the request of former Governor Napolitano on the occasion of Mexican President Vicente Fox's visit, will adorn the new Nogales border crossing. And Alberto Rios is one of my personal heroes. He was Master of Ceremonies at the AWP conference that I participated in exactly 20 years and 22 days ago. Whoa. I still have the poster, so I checked it out. I had never been to a conference. I hadn't imagined a poetry reading in a theater with a stage and a couple of hundred people. I was the person in the lineup with the I'm fixing to bolt right now rabbit look in my eye, I'm sure. And Alberto came over to me and said, "Hey," and gave me the pep talk of my life. He would be up in just minutes himself, but instead of taking the time to collect his own thoughts, he took the time to give little old me a pep talk. I watched in amazement as he took the same warmth and charm that he had shown during our personal conversation up there to the microphone. Truly an inspiration. As are his poems and stories. They have a strong sense of place. They're brimming with characters, alive with twists and turns. They make adventures of the everyday. They're magical and real, complex, and they are clear. Please welcome the great storyteller, the maestro, Alberto Tito Rios.
I need a pep talk. Oh, thank you, Sheila, so much. And welcome, everybody. Bienvenidos todos. It's one of the things I get to say that I mean. Bienvenidos and willkommen, bienvenu, bienvenuto, yate, hi. All the ways we say so simple a thing, so many different words for it. You'd think we could get it straight by now. But we're all different. We all speak different languages. We speak personal languages and public languages both. It's okay to have a lot of words. They don't scare us. We're richer for it. And I think ultimately there is only one language. We just err in that we give it many names. So there's my statement on that. I want to start with reading a poem of thanks for everybody who's helped put this together. Sheila and Susan and everybody who's been part of the setting up this up tonight. And it's called When Giving Is All We Have. And it begins with an epigraph. One river gives its journey to the next. This is about giving. And I know so many of us, we have our real lives. We retire sometimes, and we still work. We work before we work. We just work. I don't know what's wrong with us. We give because somebody gave to us. We give because nobody gave to us. We give because giving has changed us. We give because giving could have changed us. We've been better for it. We've been wounded by it. Giving has many faces. It is loud and quiet, big and small, diamond in wood nails. Its story is old, the plot worn, and the pages too. But we read this book anytime, anyway, over and again. Giving is first and every time hand to hand, mine to yours, yours to mine. You gave me blue, and I gave you yellow. Together, we are simple green. You gave me what you did not have, and I gave you what I had to give. Together, we made something greater from the difference. So thank you all those out there who continue to give, who find meaning in that giving, and who help us write poems about it. I have a lot of things I want to read tonight. I'm going to read a sort of compendium of things I've written through the years. I'm going to read from different books. I want to start by saying, though, I just had a wonderful experience. I was emceeing the state spelling bee championships. High drama, tears, and great spelling. I get to talk to the kids and their parents before they do this, and it is a powerful thing to spell a word correctly and to bring it forward from a universe of 500,000 words. There are about 500,000 words in English. When you spell a word correctly, you bring it forward. That is a powerful, powerful act. It's called spelling. It's the same root word as spell, to cast a spell. How many of you have seen Harry Potter? Who is, you don't get to answer, who is the most powerful wizard in Harry Potter?
Dumbledore.
Dumbledore.
Bumblebee.
And who are some other choices?
Snape, McGonagall. I'm a real fan. I've read about it.
So I think the most powerful wizard in Harry Potter is the author. She controls it all, right? And what is the magic wand that she uses? You know, they all have those magic wands, and they go to the wand store. You know where I get my magic wand? At the stationery store, at Costco. It's called a pen or a pencil. The writer's magic wand. I've said forever, everywhere I go, that every pencil is filled with a book. I love that idea. I was doing some research on pencils, though, and it turns out that a regular number 2 yellow pencil actually has enough lead to write about 40,000 words. A book. It's not a joke. Every pencil is filled with a book. Get out of its way. Just let it fall out. I'm going to start by reading a poem I've read several times today, but I'm going to read it once more. Somebody asked me to. And then I'll move on to some new things. This is about my grandmother, and it's about her hair. And it's about my my great uncle Carlos. And I love this man. I thought he was wonderful. I was talking to my aunt. She said, "Oh, not true. He is the meanest man who ever lived." And when he died, she told me some stories that changed my life. This story came out of it. This poem is called Refugio's Heir. Have you all heard the name refugio? It's very popular in Latin America. And it means literally Ruth, more literally refuge. This is called Refugio's Heir, and it starts this way. In the old days of our family, my grandmother was a young woman whose hair was as long as the river. She lived with her sisters on the ranch La Calera, the land of the lime, and her days were happy. But her uncle Carlos lived there too. Carlos, whose soul had the edge of a knife. One day, to teach her to ride a horse, he made her climb onto the fastest one, bareback, and sit there as he held its long face in his arms. And then he did the unspeakable deed for which he would always be remembered. He called for the handsome baby, Birin, and he placed that child in her arms. With that picture of a Madonna on horseback, he slapped the shank of the horse's rear leg. The horse did what a horse must, racing full toward the bright horizon. But first that horse ran under the alamo trees to rid its back of this unfair weight, this woman full of tears, and this baby full of love. When they reached the trees and went under, my grandmother's hair, which had trailed her, equal in its magnificence to the tail of the horse, that hair rose up and flew into the branches as if it were 1,000 arms, all of them trying to save her. The horse ran off and left her, the baby still in her arms, the two of them hanging from her hair. The baby looked only at her and did not cry, so steady was her cradle. Her sisters came running to save them. But the hair would not let go. From its fear, it held on and had to be cut, all of it, from her head. From that day on, my grandmother wore her hair short, like a stream, but it was long like a river in her sleep. Well, that man Carlos turns out to have had quite a history. Luckily, my grandmother found my grandfather. I come from a family of big stories and big love stories, and I grew up hearing them all the time and kind of getting sick of them. Nobody thinks that's funny, all right. But sometimes they reached me, right? Other people in love, all right. This is a story of my grandmother and my grandfather. And this is how they kissed. It took me a long time to understand this. And it was different from regular. This is called Teodoro Luna's Two Kisses. Mr. Teodoro Luna, in his later years, had taken to kissing his wife, not so much with his lips as with his brows. This is not to say he put his forehead against her mouth. Rather, he would lift his eyebrows once, carefully, not so vigorously he might be confused with the villain famous in the theater, but not so little as to be thought a slight movement, one of accident. This way he kissed her, often and quietly, across tables and through doorways, sometimes in photographs, and so through the years themselves. This was his passion, that only she might see, that he might feel some movement on her lips toward laughter. I'm going to read a very early poem that if this has been your homework, I apologize. It's in a lot of anthologies, but it's also about my grandmother much later on in life. When I was going to school, I was struggling with Spanish. It's a long story. We were talking about it earlier in class. And there was a time, end of elementary school, beginning of junior high, that I thought I didn't speak Spanish. My grandmother didn't speak English. I was still going to her house at least once a week for lunch. I didn't speak Spanish. She didn't speak English. You would think we had a problem. But a grandmother and a grandson having lunch is not a problem. We invented a third language as a way to solve this for ourselves. And was one I know a lot of you will recognize. This may speak directly to your grandparents. Our language was simple. She would cook, and I would eat. That's how we talked. It had meaning. I remember it. I can taste it to this day. The poem is called Nani. It's the diminutive of Nana. You could be on the planet Jupiter and ask about where the Nanas are, and they'll know exactly what you mean, right? All right, Nani. Sitting at her table, she serves the sopa de arroz to me instinctively. And I watch her, the absolute mama, and eat words I might have had to say more out of embarrassment. To speak, now foreign words I used to speak too, dribble down her mouth as she serves me albóndigas. No more than a third are easy to me. By the stove, she does something with words and looks at me only with her back. I'm full. I tell her I taste the mint and watch her speak smiles at the stove. All my words make her smile. Nani never serves herself. She only watches me with her skin, her hair. I ask for more. I watch the mama warming more tortillas for me. I watch her fingers in the flame for me. Near her mouth, I see a wrinkle speak of a man whose body serves the ants like she serves me. Then more words from more wrinkles about children, words about this and that, flowing more easily from these other mouths. Each serves as a tremendous string around her, holding her together. They speak, Nani was this and that to me, and I wonder just how much of me will die with her. What were the words I could have been or was? Her insides speak through 100 wrinkles now, more than she can bear, steal around her, shouting then, what is this thing she serves? She asks me if I want more. I own no words to stop her. Even before I speak, she serves. You ever tried to tell your grandmother you don't want any more to eat? You know what that is. For me, what's interesting about that poem, I wrote that when I was quite young, and before my grandmother died. And it's so easy when you're young to write about somebody dying. I just had a line in there. What's going to, you know, after she dies, what will I become? And then she died. And something comes back to haunt you in that. Something important, something big. Let me read an odd poem. I had, not my great-uncle Carlos, but I had another great-uncle that lived at my great-grandmother's house. And he was troubled. Something was wrong with him. We didn't know what. In those days, they never explained anything. He just didn't talk. And didn't move around a lot. And I don't mean to be disparaging, but they would sort of bring him out like a potted palm and set him in a corner. And then all the kids would play, and he'd just stay there. And then at the end of the day, they would sort of bring him back. He was like the tides. Kind of come in and come out. And what was wonderful is, after the adults would leave the room, he'd go like this. This is called, I Would Visit Him in the Corner. He was the uncle who, when he was young and lying down, had a spider crawl into the large hole of his left ear and stay through the night. Even after that spider was crushed on the side of his head and he saw the legs, he never could believe it was gone. And so that ear was always stopped up, even though he would stand sometimes like a swimmer, jumping up and down with his head cocked. It kept him from dying in the war because they would not take him. But he said he died anyway and had nightmares that crawled. And his ear grew bigger because he kept hitting it. And when he was old, it became his habit, even when it bled. Finally, in the red night, scratching, with no one to see and nothing to hold, the spider carelessly left him. I'm going to read a poem I didn't get to read at the bookstore. That was the poem you were referring to, Sheila, that I wrote for Governor Napolitano and the visit of Vicente Fox. And I'm just going to read it the way I wrote it that day in both languages. I went back and forth. And I was telling your class earlier, Vicente Fox was standing next to me as I read this. And if you know what he looks like, he is literally 18 feet tall. And he wears cowboy boots, so he's like 18 and a half feet tall. And he was standing next to me, and I thought, that's a little intimidating. This was called Borderlines, Líneas Fronterizas. And this is going to be on the new border crossing at Nogales. It begins also with an epigraph. A weight carried by two weighs only half as much. Un peso cargado por dos no pesa más que la mitad. The world on a map looks like the drawing of a cow in a butcher's shop. All those lines showing where to cut. El mundo en un mapa parece el dibujo de una vaca en la carnicería. Todas esas líneas mostrando dónde cortar. Pero ese dibujo de la vaca es también un rompecabezas, mostrando cómo todas las piezas extrañas caben muy bien juntas. But that drawing of the cow is also a jigsaw puzzle, showing just as much how very well all the strange parts fit together. La manera en que miramos el dibujo nos hace ver la diferencia. The way in which we look at the drawing makes all the difference. Parecemos vivir en un mundo de mapas, pero en verdad vivimos en un mundo hecho no de papel ni de tinta, sino de gente. Esas líneas son nuestras vidas. We seem to live in a world of maps, but in truth, we live in a world made not of paper and ink, but of people. Those lines are our lives. Juntos, demos vuelta al mapa hasta que veamos claramente la frontera es lo que nos une, no lo que nos separa. Together, let us turn the map until we see clearly the border is what joins us, not what separates us. Hard sell today. Well, when I was growing up, I've taught a course in magical realism for a long time. We were talking about some authors, like Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who very sadly passed away just recently. And so I've taught this course in magical realism, and when people hear it, they think, whoa, ghosts. And I say, no, magical, it's an adjective for realism. It's realism that's so amazing. They say, yeah, but tell us about the ghosts. So I was challenged, I felt myself challenged to write about ghosts. Can there be ghosts in realism? And isn't that magical realism? Not ghosts in the magical simply. This is the poem I wrote. It has to do about when I was growing up. It's called When There Were Ghosts. On the Mexico side in the 1950s and 60s, there were movie houses everywhere, and for the longest time, people could smoke as they pleased in the comfort of the theaters. The smoke rose, and the movie told itself on the screen and in the air both. The projection caught a little in the wavering mist of the cigarettes. In this way, every story was two stories, and every character lived near its ghost. Looking up, we knew what would happen next before it did, as if the movie were dreaming itself, and we were part of it, part of the plot itself, and not just the audience. And in that dream, the actors' faces bent a little, hard to make out exactly in the smoke, so that Maria Felix and Pedro Armendariz looked a little like my aunt and one of my uncles. And so they were. And so were we all in the movies, which is how I remember it. Popcorn in hand, smoke in the air, gum on the floor. Those Saturday nights, we ourselves were the story and the stuff and the stars. We ourselves were alive in the dance of the dream. Anybody remember when you could smoke? And people could, even in classrooms, it's pretty amazing. But it was, to me, the phenomenon of being in a movie theater with smoke rising, and you could literally watch the movie right there. Disneyland is making a fortune off that now. They're shooting up mist, white water mist, and they're projecting like sea monsters onto it. And I'm thinking, I know you got that. I know you got that. My son got married. It's unbelievable. About a year ago now. It's been a little while. And I'm going to read something personal. He married this wonderful woman, and they're having a wonderful life together. And I got to write an epithalamium. That's a wedding poem. And this is what I got to read at their wedding. And they'll be mortified that I just read it everywhere. I just love them. I love saying this about them. It's called Breathlessness for Anita and Joaquin. The night stars make a shore of sand in the summer sky, a brilliant beach of the impossible. You have found this place in each other, not far away, but up close. Found it in the stopped moment in which you now live. A hand inside a hand, a look that sees what the other sees, ears that hear one song, a love alive inside heartbeat and deep breath and dark hair. This place is yours now, the broad shore of a new world. It is your abiding gift to each other to know that when you close your eyes, it is the closed eye that sees farthest. To know how, in the stopped moment, it is breathlessness, not breathing, that defines you. As you stand in this imagined, now real place of yourselves, you are for each other, more alive, more present, no greater adventure than each other. Yikes, I don't know what they're doing. How are we doing on time?
Great.
All right, I'll read another couple and then take some questions and answers. We'll go from there. Let me read a poem that is fun. I've been struggling with hearing lately. And so I heard something, I'm sure I'm the only one. So I heard something on the news the other day, and I wrote this poem, and we'll just have fun with it. It's called Weekend Weather. I misheard the weatherman say, whoop. No, he didn't say that. Let me start again. I misheard the weatherman say there was a chance of rain. I'm just going back to the moment. I misheard the weatherman say there was rain and a chance of blizzards this weekend. Now, I knew I had misheard it, but still, I knew too, never to take anything for granted, never to assume, which is what makes you-know-what out of you and me. Thank you, Miss Lee, in second grade. What I heard, it was silly, perhaps, but I looked around anyway, at least once or twice during the day, as I carefully crossed the very dry street. This is a place of lizards, after all, and the news, as I heard it, was not impossible. Blizzards somewhere else, but lizards here. Very possible. My childhood, after all, was made of them. I remember a summer of migrating tarantulas, and I think they would have made the news similarly. Rather than mishearing, perhaps the news was meant only for me. Sometimes that's how the world is, speaking in whatever voice it can find. A chance of lizards for me, and me ready for them. Old friends, old friends. Let me end with a dessert poem. A poem about pie. Can't miss with pie. What's fun about this poem for me is it's in two parts. And when I first wrote this, I was happy with just the first part. You'll see why. It's called Perfect for Any Occasion. 1. Pies have a reputation, and it's immediate. No talk of potential regarding a pie. It's good or it isn't. But mostly it is. Sweet, very sweet. Right then, right there, blue and red. A pie can't go to junior college. Work hard for the grades, work 2 jobs on the side. It can't slowly build a reputation and a growing client base. A pie gets one chance and knows it, wearing as makeup those sparkling granules of sugar, as a collar those diamond cutouts bespeaking fair day, felicity, contentment. I tell you, everything is great, says a pie. Great and fun and fine. And you smell nice too, someone says. A full pound of round sound, all pies live a life of applause. 2. But then there are the other pies, the leftover pies, the ones nobody chooses at Thanksgiving. Mincemeat? What the hell is that? People ask, pointing instead at a double helping of Mr. I Can Do No Wrong pecan pie. But the unchosen pies have a long history too. They have plenty of good stories, places they've been. They were once fun too. But nobody wants to listen to them anymore. Oh sure, everybody used to love lard. But things have changed, brother. Things have changed. It's never the end of the story, of course. Some pies make a break for it, live underground for a while, doing what they can, talking fast, trying to be sweet pizzas if they're lucky. No good comes of it. Nobody is fooled. A pie is a pie for one great day. Last week, it was Jell-O. Tomorrow, it'll be cake. You see, like, I think it's Peter Piper or something, they were trying to sell sweet pizzas for a while, maybe they still are. Man, bad pies, bad pies. Who has some questions? Yes?
Have you ever read Elizabeth Bishop's poem, The Man Moth?
Yes.
I was going to say, if you haven't, that would be my gift to you, and thanks for your poem.
No, thank
it's
you.
great, from
Yes.
the typo, yeah.
Elizabeth Bishop, I worked with a musician named David Broso, by the way, who put the song One Art to music. And he's an Israeli musician. He's a big deal in Europe. And he did a big PBS special. And he and Jackson Brown sang one of our songs, by the way, in the Masada Sunrise concert. Very cool. But he set different, he works with poets, not lyricists. And he set that song, One Art, to music in a country music way.
Wow.
The art of losing is not hard to master.
That'd be great. You should do the almanac poem, the Sestina.
Yes.